Hello, hello.
Hello.
Episode 25. Is that right? Is it 25?
Yes, let's say it is.
I really can't believe we've been talking about General Hospital for so long. I mean, I love it and I'm very happy to do it, but every time I'm like 23, 24, 25, it's been weeks.
It's been some weeks.
Lots of weeks.
And this is one of those weeks I probably wouldn't have watched every episode if it wasn't for us recording.
Yeah.
So here we are though. How are y'all? How is life?
Work is work. But hopefully, I want to say hopefully it'll slow down after some key decisions were made, but I don't know. I don't think life works that way. So one day at a time.
Isn't adulthood just us telling ourselves like weekly, like once this slows down, I'll be in the clear?
Once this week happens or once this big event happens, it's going to slow down and I can relax and I can just stay in bed and sleep.
Ugh. Yeah. Well, I'm in Chicago. It's cold and snowy. I was like, please get me out of here. I'm ready to go.
Oh, okay. So I won't complain about how cold it's been over here.
Please don't.
Because it hasn't. Well, it has been for us, spoiled Bay Area folks, but
I walked outside and almost slipped because of the ice, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot that's something that happens here." And then also, like, just like want to shout out, I had put on Twitter that my mom was having surgery, and so much of like the folks that we've met on sub Twitter just said some of the very sweetest things and kept me so entertained during the surgery as I was worried, and I just want to like say thank you. I saw this thing that was like, your Twitter friends aren't your real friends. And I was like, actually, like, that is untrue. Because people that you meet online hold you down because it's 2022 and sometimes we meet people that way. So just want to say thank you for that. And yeah, just looking forward to a better week next week with less stress.
Yeah, I mean, just because that, we're communicating with each other via computer or whatever, it doesn't make us less human. Now, there are some people who are bots, but for the most part, we're human beings communicating with each other so we can hold each other down near or far, wherever you are.
Oh, wait, that was...
I do the chest pounding. I don't have the heart of the ocean on.
The wind in my hair.
Now I'm gonna watch Titanic tonight, honestly. I love it.
Love story.
And I love that instantly I just like looked into the distance.
You did. Oh, I thought that was great.
Jack and Leo. All right, let's hop into it. Let's talk about GH this week. Y'all ready?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Y'all ready for this? Okay. We are musical today. All right, let's do it. Ava encourages Nicholas to rebuild his relationship to Laura's surprise, or with Spencer to Laura's surprise. And they all can see the danger of Spencer getting too close to Victor. Ava and Olivia talk about Leo, and Olivia tells her about Leo's diagnosis and that Ned is adopting Leo, which she said that Julian would approve. And though Julian is hopefully resting in pieces, I could appreciate that. And Ava said she'll be around for Leo more. It was really great to see them sharing a scene. Laura and Esme have a heart to whatever Esme is calling a heart. Laura talks to her about respecting her home and her as a person. She encourages her to build bridges. Esme calls Trina to extend what can only be a poisonous olive branch, but we'll get to that. Trina tells Joss, who we are now referring to as her roommate, about the gift that Spencer got her, and her roommate tells her about having sex with Cam, insert eye roll. They both acknowledge that they have not been connecting lately when Esme walks in to prove why Trina wouldn't confide in her roommate. Esme fake apologizes to Trina, and her roommate is having none of it. Esme and the roommate argue, and even when Trina tries to dismiss the situation, her roommate won't ease up, instead choosing to betray Trina's confidence and tell her business. You know we're gonna talk about that. Esme walks away in a huff, but looks pleased at the riff. We later see that she has put the burner cell phone with the chaos sex tape in a cell phone case that looks like Trina's, because apparently that's all you need to do to clone phones these days. The Peter August saga comes to an end. Felicia hits him on the head with a tire iron, and Anna is at his side when he takes his last breaths. Hopefully, they give his brain to Faison or to Kevin so he can have Faison bookends. Felicia and Anna get a hero's welcome, but Anna is not comfortable with this because she still has some guilt over not saving Peter. Robert is there for her and encourages her, and I know we will talk more about our beloved Anna. Chillin has their first kiss and has to give Wheezy back to Maxie. They officially call her Bailey Louise, but since Jen M named her Wheezy, I'm gonna call her Wheezy. Carly and Sonny come to a divorce agreement quickly, very quickly. Carly tries to negotiate with Ava about Avery. Ava throws some petty blows, which I loved because she's our queen, but ultimately shows why she should have custody of her daughter. She puts her needs first. Avery loves Carly, so Ava will not cut Carly out of Avery's life, like moms do. Sonny drowns his sorrows and drunk dials Nina. Nina shows up to Charlie's and takes him back to his penthouse. He makes her eggs. And they talk about him drinking on his meds. Dante shows up to tell Sonny that Peter's dead. Nina hangs out in back as if they were teenagers. Carly finds out from Drew about Peter and rushes to see Sonny at the penthouse, where she comes face to face with Sonny and is no longer mistress. Curtis and Drew decide they will play both sides to figure out what's going on with Marshall, aka Hat Daddy. Curtis will be the good son, and Drew will have some sort of business proposition. So I guess we will find out more about that. Lucy and Nina meet and notice that Sasha is burying herself in work. Brenda convinces her to take some time away and go with him to Niagara Falls. We see Sasha talk to her old dealer and request the usual. Hopefully this is not heart attack inducing usual, but we'll see. Sam tells Finn and Elizabeth about Peter. Sam tells Elizabeth that she will have her back as she needs her. It was a very sweet Liz moment. Not sweet was Finn trying to pin all the weird things that have been happening with Elizabeth on Liz's boys. No. Anyway, Sean decides to set up the Invader Empire and has to move to San Francisco to do it. This is me breaking the fourth wall. Sean, we have an extra room. If you need somewhere to stay, we got you. He tells Alexis, who is sad to see him go. He also runs into Harmony and Charlie trying to buy a fake birth certificate for Willow. She is clearly unaware that Michael has involved the State Department in the great birth certificate hunt of 2022. But anyway, Laura talks with Sam and Robert and makes the connection that Victor has something to do with Luke's death, and that Luke's death was not an accident. I know there were a few other things that happened this week, but I know that we're going to dive into them. So would love to hear what you think about the week. Yeah, and your favorite moments.
Ooh, so I had a lot of great moments. Love the scene with Laura and Esme. Laura was telling her, you're basically a spoiled little brat and you need to cut it out. Loved it. Loved the scenes. Well, I loved all of Ava's scenes. Everyone that she was in. The one with Carly and Ava. Actually, I think Carly and Ava are my ship. Because I just love seeing them together. They don't need to be in a romantic relationship, even though that would be interestingly hot. But I just love them doing scenes together. They both looked fierce. They both acted fierce. And I loved every minute of it. So thank you, Laura Wright.
I think Laura and Maura share your ship. Yeah.
Yes, I do. But I also love the scenes that Ava had with Leo and Olivia. I believe those were very, I don't know, I kind of felt like there was some sincereness to it. And so I love that. So every scene that Ava was in, it was great. I actually I enjoyed the Peter scenes of him dying. I think again, well, of course, just because he's dying, but also I think, Finola and Kirsten elevated him and made him seem more human. And, when he, was begging for Maxie, I was like, oh. But then I also agree with Maxie, like 5 minutes ago, you were trying to kill her. So why are you trying to beg for my life right now? I don't understand. But I loved Maxie giving it back to him. I loved Anna's remorse. I loved that she was the last one with him. I still would have loved to have Valentine there, but understand, the actor's got other things going on, so I'm okay with it. I'll live with it. But Anna did great with those. So, those were great moments for me. Also, it wasn't great for Trina as a character, but I loved her standing up for herself, or at least trying to, because they weren't listening. And I love that you called Joss her roommate, because she wasn't being a friend. She was just being a roommate, and a very scandalous, sketchy roommate at that. So yeah, those were my great moments.
What about you, Sandra?
Yeah, there were, I feel like overall the week was had a lot of great moments, the centerpiece being Peter's death and like how much everyone was looking forward to that. They kind of lost me at the end of the week. Like Friday, I was really struggling to pay attention, and like I had to keep rewinding and be like, wait, what happened? But I think a lot of that had to do because there was so much Jason ghost in the aura of the show. Like every scene people were talking about what a hero Jason was, and so what I realized is that my mind just like that just turns into white noise, and my brain refuses to retain it. So sorry about whatever happened on Friday. I barely remember, but other than that I thought it was like a fairly strong week for the show. And my favorite moment was Anna staying with Peter while he died. I definitely was expecting only to feel just like unadulterated joy and glee about Peter dying, as so many of us were expecting. And I was so pleasantly surprised to actually feel the gravity of this character's death. Finola especially just brought so much presence, so much sincerity, authenticity to her performance. It really reminded me, like, this is her nephew. This is a person who she thought was her son, that she thought that she did, one of the most unthinkable things that for her as a woman, like for her as a mother, that she could have done. And how much suffering happened because of this, because of all the pieces that came into play, including his, without overly humanizing him. Like it was like just enough humanizing for, I feel like, for me to like actually process his death as real and not just like another death that could be written into him being alive again. Like I really feel like he's dead because of that. No, of course, whatever happens on the show happens on the show, but like in that moment I was like, this man is dead, and what does this mean for the show? Like then I was like actually like, oh wow, like this has taken up such a huge amount of bandwidth. I hadn't even really thought about like, well, now what? now what gets to fill this void? And so I feel like the way that Finola just held it down also allowed for the death to actually feel really real, and for me to like start thinking like, oh, I actually have some hope. I'm going to go with it because Finola inspired it. So Finola inspired hope I'll always take more of. What about you, Tracy?
Yeah, I knew you were gonna talk about Finola. I just echo everything that you said. And so I'll go with a different moment. I really loved seeing Trina come into her own. I know that there was, and this is a little bit about what I want to see less of. I'll get into that later, but I know that there was a lot of social media processing, like, well, why can't Trina stand up for herself, and why? And I'm like, what we know about Trina is that she's a very strategic person, and she also don't got time for the bullshit. So she knows who Esme is. She's not like fooled by her. She doesn't think that Esme wants to be friends with her. But she's also like, I actually don't want to deal with this girl. Portia, my mama, told me not to mess with this girl. Jocelyn has told me this girl is more than a mean girl. So let me just steer clear. Let me stand up for myself in the relationships that I care about, with the people that I care about, and let this crazy girl do her thing. And I think that some of that got lost because people wanted her to be a character that she wasn't. They were like, oh, she's not a firecracker. She's not, that's not who Trina is. Because the moment she dismissed Esme, she let her roommate have it because that's the relationship she cares about. She was like, yo, that was whack. And she didn't back down from it. When her roommate was like, I'm sorry, she was like, okay, well, that was a sorry ass thing you did. You know what I mean? Like, she never backed down or tried to make her feel better about it. She was like, this offended me. This was a problem. You did this thing and it was fucked up. And I appreciated that time and that space they let that sit because it was like really important. And we see that with Trina. She cares about Spencer. She cares about that relationship with Spencer. So she let Spencer have it. She cares about her roommate. So she let her roommate have it. I am interested to see what the rift looks like as we're going forward between them. But I appreciated that character development and character defining and cementing moment for Trina. So that was what my favorite was.
I
Yeah,
agree.
I love her.
Which is why I am not looking forward to what's going to happen with this whole video thing, because I am like, it's frame. Well, I'm hoping, which we don't know what's going to happen, right? So don't know what Esme is really going to do with this phone. But if she's planning on framing Trina, then if the roommate believes that Trina did this, then it just basically shows how much the roommate does not know Trina and is not really a good friend to her. So I'm hoping that the roommate can elevate herself back to being Joss's friend and not falling for Esme's shenanigans. But that's for the future discussion. I guess I also wanted to note that one of my hot takes was that Peter died on a Wednesday. What? instead of Friday, or Monday, or even he died on a Wednesday in the middle of the week.
The disrespect.
That was so disrespectful.
And the parallel is like, that's what they did to Nathan too. I remember when Nathan died, when he got shot, I was like, well, he'll be okay because it's like a Tuesday or whatever.
Right.
And then the next episode, I was like, you killed, I don't even like him that much, and you killed him on a Wednesday. But
flatline.
He got his comeuppance because his brother died on a Wednesday too.
Yeah, but it was funny to me because every time someone announced that Peter was dead, I kept thinking, for real? Really? And thinking that I think it would have been funny if every other character was like, really? Is he really dead? Is he for real? For real? You know, because that guy had like 10 lives. He was like a cat. And even though we didn't get to see him actually being put in a body bag and buried, there's no, as far as I know, there's no plans for a funeral. So dude can come up 5 years later talk about what's up, because we still haven't actually seen him be dead except for when Anna closes eyes. You know, anything could happen with GH. So,
but even seeing someone be buried, you know, they can bring them back anyway.
Right. True. But we did, you know, somebody did post, I saw on social media a picture of Wes Ramsey walking away with his GH hat, his GH jacket. So if Peter comes back alive, it doesn't have to be Wes Ramsey.
Let's just let him lie. Finola also left, put up a really sweet tribute to him. It was very sweet.
Very classy. Very classy.
No notes.
No notes.
Tanya, who got your performance of the week?
Well, we'll just, you know, keep it real. Very classy lady Finola got my performance of the week for Peter's death. I mean, she didn't leave any, like you always say, she didn't leave anything on the table. So, like, even after the whole death scene, she comes into GH. Everyone, which is really crazy to me that everyone needed to stop and give her an applause. But, you know, when they did that, she had this look on her face like, you know, I'm not happy about this, you know. And then Robert with his, I'm nominating you for Key to the City. And she's like, what the fuck? Why? You know, I mean, like, Peter was definitely consequential to the main characters of this show, but the rest of Port Charles probably has no idea who the man is. So why is she getting a key to the city? It's just like crazy. But she, you know, broke it down. It was like, this was not something that made me happy, and I don't feel like I should get a key to the city for. She, you know, she played all the beats right, and so love her. She always gives a great performance, but this was great this week. So yay, Finola.
She was just
Absolutely
so true to her character, and it's exactly how I would expect Anna to hold what happened. And like, I loved that it wasn't her, like, she wasn't the one that dealt the final blow, but she still had to make a decision that was really complex, which was just to let him die. And that's not something that Anna takes lightly. And so I know that there was some like commentary that was like, oh, it's anticlimactic and whatever. I think that it's like such a powerful, subtle choice that's going to have long, you know, reverberations for her as a character. And I loved that.
Yeah, I'm so glad that they put it in the hands of women characters.
Yes.
Because so often we see like Sonny and Jason, like as we saw Jason's ghost getting like these accolades on Friday, that like they are the heroes. Dante and Drew went with her. They didn't have anything to do with this. Even when Dante was like, this is a group effort, I was like, Dante, calm down.
What did you do? You babysitted everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
But as annoyed as I have been through with Maxie through this whole saga, like seeing Maxie, Felicia, and Anna together in the woods was just like really important, just a beautiful moment. And Anna, like, I mean, like Sandra said, just like there's nobody like Finola Hughes. Who else could have ever made us care about the death of this character?
No one.
So I just felt like, you know, there was not anything, unless it was like some super crazy violent end, there was not going to be anything that was satisfying. So the thing that they satisfied was like the emotions of it. And Finola Hughes like really, really brought that home and really knocked that out of the park.
Which is something that doesn't happen as much on GH because it's so plot driven. So it feels like a tone switch, because normally this would be like a Jason kill, but there's no longer this kind of default to Jason being the hero when really it should have been Anna all along. And I also loved that Robert and Mac stayed back and they were just like, the Scorpio boys were just chilling in the hospital. And I really loved the Robert and Anna moment too, where he like just holds space for her and reassures her and doesn't also quite understand her. There's always that little kind of like missing each other in terms of like relationship to Peter, or like relationship to good and bad and black and white thinking. And also I loved his little like, just give your heart to someone who deserves it. not Valentine.
Not Valentine.
You're so weird.
Yes.
You're
It's
so
perfect.
It
weird.
was just something that is like a magic you can't like quantify or capture. Like Robert and Anna just are who they are, no matter who you ship Anna with. And
Right.
we've shipped her with many people.
Yeah.
And we are currently shipping with Valentine. Like Anna is the ship. And like seeing her with Robert reminded you that like every stage of her life, she's gonna make it work. And people, when she leaves relationships, she leaves marks. Like the men that she leaves are not the same as a result of like loving her. And I'm like, that's a bad bitch. And I love it. I love it for her. And I love it for us to be able to witness it because, you know, just top tier, not just like soap actress, but top tier actress, top tier thespian. At least she's an artist. I just love her.
And she's just like a full human being. I mean, the fact that she has great relationships with her exes, or at least she has some level of, like, she's experiencing closure. They may still be hung up on their, you know, past whatever, but you know, she's trying to figure herself out and figure her life out. And even still being a strong woman that she is. I mean, I have such admiration for the character too, who makes mistakes, tries to learn from them, you know, and tries to have some sort of closure and not try to, you know, not try to build herself up as being something that she's not too, you know? So that's amazing. I do have a runner up, and my runner up is the wardrobe department for putting Brooklyn in a leather jacket that looked great. Thank you. Thank you.
Even though we're in a heat wave, I'll take it over the blazer.
Right?
We'll take it.
I'm sure she's in a really, like, Jax's place is really air conditioned, and so the temperature is perfect. But loved it on her. She looked great. I still don't like her as a character, but she's looking good.
100% agree. It's a collaboration, and this time wardrobe did their part. So hats off.
All right. So what do we want to see more of?
Well, mine's a little more and a little less, as these things tend to go. I want to see more nuanced portrayal of the legacy characters. And so I'm going to start with the more, right? The example of where they're doing a great job, which is Spencer. Mm-hmm. Spencer is so clearly a Cassadine. Like, there's no doubt about it. He embodies so much of what we might expect from a Cassadine, right? There's a little bit of darkness to him. He has that regal air to him, right? He knows how to he carries himself like someone who has been rich his entire life. And not just rich, but like royally rich. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't carry himself like new money. And at the same time, he's also distinct from the other Cassadines, right? He's very different from Nicholas, for example. When Nicholas came on the scene, he was a little brat, right? He was a snob. He was like a little piece of shit. And part of his growth was like finding humanity through his relationship with Laura and eventually Lucky. And then we went on to see him be the good Cassadine for most of his time on the campus. There may have been moments where we thought, oh, like I see a little bit like what's Nicholas going to do? But ultimately he was always good and always chose the side of the good in the end. And Spencer's not like that. Spencer has always been very distinct, especially since Nicholas Bechdel started portraying him, right? Like we have the two Nicholases being like the cornerstone Spencer portrayers. And he was bratty and snobby, but very much in this like his own way that was like very much like a performance a lot of it was really rooted in the fact that he actually was growing up in, at least as a child, like he was growing up in this really rich environment, but he also was surrounded by love and family, and also had relationships with other kids, which is something that Nicholas didn't have, right? So he was like embedded in this whole world versus like Nicholas, who grew up very isolated. And then, you know, we see a different turn for Spencer, being isolated at boarding school and coming back as like Nicholas Chavez's portrayal. And he actually went Dark Prince immediately. Like that's the first that we see of him. And so I really enjoyed that it's his portrayal, while he is so clearly a Cassadine, he's not a mini Nicholas. There's actually like not much that's Nicholas about him. And I'm not even just saying this as shade to, you know, the Marcus Coloma portrayal. It really is just the history. They're very, very different characters, and they carry themselves differently. They're motivated by different things. And so I really love that. And in fact, Spencer's more like Valentine than he is any other Cassadine, which is really fun because they hate each other. And so I think that there's both, I'm so excited about what they've done with Spencer, and am genuinely interested to see what they do with him next. And that's like why when he was being completely unreasonable with Nicholas, I loved it. Like, I was just like, yes, this is my boy. This is the way that he acts. This feels very motivated by betrayal. He actually doesn't believe half the things that he's saying, but he's saying them because he knows how to push Nicholas's buttons. Like, he's saying them to make a point. Like when he makes all those demands, like, I want the restitution dropped, and I want you to dump Ava, and I want my money, and all this stuff. He knows he's not getting that. He knows that's not the road, but he's saying it to make a point. He's saying it to be a little asshole. And I think what's one of the things that makes me excited about Spencer's storyline is that we're actually grappling with the darkness now, versus with Nicholas, it kind of just like, he was so good for so long, complicated but good, and then all of a sudden he just went full Dark Prince and never really recovered from that, even, you know, and that started with Tyler Christopher. And so I think they're doing a great job with Spencer, but like the other legacy characters, whew, like Joss and Cam, for example, they don't.
You mean Trina's roommate and Xander Smith's son?
You're right. It's just a lot to say.
I just wanted to make sure we're talking about this.
Yeah, we're talking about the same characters. Yeah. Neither of them have much in terms of characterization to work with. They're like, what, Cam likes soccer and Jocelyn, and he's the assistant manager at Kelly's. Like, a lot of Cam's characterization is like rooted in Liz's characterization of being poor, but they don't ever really explore the tension between him being poor and Jocelyn being super rich, right? All that tension actually plays out between Spencer and Cam, which is interesting in that like there's history there, but like oftentimes when Spencer is kind of dunking on Cam, like, for example, he was the one that pointed out, like, what are your interests again besides Jocelyn? And then with Joss, what's her characterization, right? Outside of like volleyball, she really liked journaling for a while. She loves Trina, which plus, loves her in not in loving ways always, right? But she's very fixated on Trina. I'll talk about that later. And also like she's all of her scenes outside of her scenes with the teens are all with Carly. So she gets like this like mini Carly characterization, which I don't think has always been consistent, but like they're really leaning into it now. And I think it's something that we also see even with some of the older characters, right? Like Michael or BLQ, where I'm like, are you a quartermain? Do you have personality outside of your parents' identities or your family identities? Even like they took Brooklyn's singing away. And I'm like, what's this girl gonna do after this baby swaps over? And with Michael, I mean, we've seen how much this character has floundered because they won't make strong characterization choices around them. It's like with these legacies characters, they're afraid to let them branch out and be their own, to like really play with some of the tensions in their family in a way that isn't just like repeating watered down versions of older characters. And so I think that's one of the things that I like so much about the Spencer characterization is that, like, yes, he does some really unlikable things sometimes. Yes, he can be really annoying, but there is a commitment and like a path for him that feels very distinct, unlike most of the other legacy characters. I think another good example of a legacy character who is so distinctly their own is Maxie, even though she's been annoying as hell, right? This last storyline, Maxie is very much her own character, and you can see how she's Felicia's daughter. You can see how she's Mac's daughter. Fuck Frisco, but you know, like whether I like Maxie or not, there's no question to me about her characterization. I know who Maxie is, and I want to know who these other characters are, and I don't know, and I don't know that the writers know either.
Yeah, so much more I have to say. I just agree 100%. I want to see more Sante. I love them as a couple. I actually just went down like a Lou Sam rabbit hole. And because I forgot, because I was a Jay Sammer at the time, like hardcore Jay Sammer. And so I did not love Lou Sam because I was just like really salty. Um, but when I went back, I was like, fuck, I forgot Kelly Monaco and Greg Vaughn were like actually really hot together. And it just like really showed like, oh yeah, Kelly is that girl. Like she will have Kim everywhere. It's very focused. If you tell her she's in a relationship with somebody, like it's on. And I know that there were people who were thinking about like Dream when like they recast Drew. If it was Billy Miller, I would be like petitioning right now to have them back together. But without that chemistry, the history is not compelling for me. Like it is their chemistry that made them compelling, especially when they changed him from being Jason to Drew to like, them breaking up. Even the breakup of Billy Miller's Drew and Sam, I was like, girl, you don't want him to go. Like you are sobbing. And then you did not look happy to be back with Jason. So anyway, so if it was like that Drew, I might be more interested in a triangle because I love a woman focused triangle, which I'll get into during our deep dive. But I love Sante. I think that they like really show like the evolution of these characters. They've allowed them to grow up. I never was a Lante person. I always thought that Dante was really stagnant. I appreciated the chemistry that he had with the original portrayer, or like Julie Marie. I appreciated that chemistry. I didn't think he had it with Emmy Ryland, and so I was like, yeah, break them up. Who cares? And I don't know why people were like, I don't know why the writers were like so invested in not breaking them up. But they just weren't good for me. But like seeing Sam happy, seeing her secure, seeing her like appreciated, seeing them like blend their little families together, or at least we think we see that because we don't see it on screen, like really feels important as far as the characterization. It actually gives me like some of the Sam Trick vibes that we lost when Patrick left. And so I just want to see more Sante. Bring them on, give them a story, let us see their relationship grow. And people were like, oh, it felt really quick for them to say I love you. These people have been these adults have been in a relationship with each other for a long time. The I love yous were not quick; they were actually very earned, and so I want to see on screen them earn more of it. What about you, Tanya?
I am totally for seeing Dante more on screen.
You
So I don't know, shocking, but
Well
even if,
documented Dom
you know,
thirst.
even if he's, mixing it up with Sam and not, with me, that's fine. I like seeing
good.
Dante, Dante, I like that he is in the mix, still in the mix with dad, with Sonny, recognizing that Sonny is just not in a good place. I like seeing that. I want him to stay there. But I also, as far as Sam, I was really, I had talked about it before that I liked that Sam and Elizabeth had a friendship. And I like that, this week, Sam kind of really reiterated that. And I kind of want her to actually figure out what's going on with Elizabeth and DID versus Finn, because it just makes more sense to me as Sam being an investigator. And I think Sam should, be looking at these signs that there's something really wrong with Elizabeth, and would love to see her be the one to investigate it. I think Finn is too stuck on the idea that it's the kids, and I don't know why, but I think Sam would be better at it. But then that would also make the story probably end quicker because Sam would get down to business. So I think they have Finn doing it because it would just prolong the situation a little bit more because he doesn't know what he's doing. But Sam would try to figure it out and it will be in just like that. So I don't know, but I do want her to be more involved with Liz and trying to figure out what the problem is. Yeah, I agree. Having Sam and Dante just be more on the scene would be great. I would enjoy both of that. But I also want Valentine to come back too. Oh, Valentine. Anyway.
He is missed. He's certainly missed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just like maybe I love the Liz and Sam friendship as a penance for how awful I was during the Dick Wars, because I was a disaster. Somebody pulled up an old message board. They were like, "Tracy, were you on this?" And I was like, "Please don't send this to me. I don't want to know if I'm on it. I don't want to know."
Apparently, you were on it though.
Like it was an old thread, and I was like, I don't want to even read it because it might have been me, and I would definitely be embarrassed by what I said. So let's just let it pass. See what I want to see less of. Is that where we are?
Yes.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Ready.
Cool. It is like a combination of like show stuff and personal stuff, right? So I want to see less of myself reacting to soap Twitter. You are so funny with that cups. Yeah, I want to see less of myself reacting to soap Twitter. I think part of what I do is like I do our social media, and so I'll like make sure to post relevant clips that Sandra will clip for us in like the week before, or things that we've like said in the way past. But oh yeah, I remember we had a clip about that. And since we're on the West Coast, a lot of times, unless I don't spoil Sprina days. Like I'll just get offline for Sprina days. But if it's not a Sprina day, like a lot of times I'll know a lot of what happened before I actually watch it on our broadcast time, because I want to be able to like tweet and be part of the conversation from our account. And so I found, and especially last week, that I am reacting a lot more to like what is being said online than I am to like what's actually happening on the show. And so I remember, like, I wanted to sit in being mad at Joss. Like, right, I was like, Trina's roommate is wilding right now. I want to sit in being mad at her because like what she did was like super inappropriate. Now, I think that some of it was like a little unforgivable, like with the what was it? The first day I didn't feel that way. I was like, well, I was kind of wild. I probably would have told my friend don't be a side piece, all of that. It was the telling her business that took it over the edge for me. Like just somebody that you said was more than a mean girl, so you just like put her in the crosshairs.
Yeah.
But then I found myself when people were like, "Oh yeah, Trina and Esme should be friends." I couldn't even sit in how mad I was at Trina's roommate because I had to be like, "Yo, what the fuck is wrong with y'all?" You know what I'm saying? And like,
Trina
this was like a this was like, maybe you have the right people muted or whatever, but there was a whole conversation about like, because a lot of it is like rooted in people not liking Joss, right? They were like, Esme's a great villain, and to like stick it to like Joss, like they should be friends. And I'm like, do we forget that she drugged her? Like, and it was also like this idea because the GH account had tweeted, and I have Carly's name muted, so I didn't see it at first, but they had tweeted something about Joss, like, oh, Joss goes full Carly,
Oh yeah, I saw that.
whatever. And I was like, Esme like recorded her having sex. Like, it does not matter if she goes full Carly or whatever that means. Like, let's not set this up as if like Joss wouldn't have done that, then Esme wouldn't have done that. That's not what happened. Esme is a sociopath. Like, she is someone who understands how to like blend in with people and like look like she cares and look like she shows empathy when she has none, to then turn around. So you telling me that like just like a mean interaction with Jocelyn is like what caused her to like magically buy a purple case like Trina's and to like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it just like, and so I didn't even get a chance to
Oh.
like sit in what the storyline was because I was like so busy being like, what are y'all saying? You know what I mean?
So
So for
people
me,
are saying that it's because of Jocelyn that Esme is evil.
there was like a whole thread of um if Joss would have been nicer to Esme, then Esme wouldn't like have public or wouldn't publish the like sex tape or whatever.
People were
Um
trying to say that the conversation that Esme had with Laura just radically changed her, touched her,
Oh, and she was gonna change her mind and
moved
not
her in
do.
her cold, dead heart.
Yeah, I don't think that was my impression of the conversation. I think Esme was, kind of listening, but not really listening. You know how, some teens do. They get lectured and they're like, okay, whatever, grandma. I think that's what she was doing with Laura. Because I mean, Laura tried to tell her about herself, but Esme wasn't listening. So I don't think Laura's lecture really had that strong of an impact on her character.
and how could it? Esme
Yeah.
has like been shown to like have like part of it is, so two things. Part of
Right.
it is that one, we don't know what her backstory is or like what she's doing, and so it's easy to like maybe sometimes forget like, oh no, this is cray cray.
Mhm.
And the other part is that people are so easy and quick to forgive white girls. Like, all you got to do is drop a couple tears and be a little pretty, and then all of a sudden people are like, oh, you're not that bad. And that I think was what happened. And I'm just, and this is the last thing I'll say and I'll pass it on. I'm actually just not interested in having social media conversations that are not rooted in what actually is real. Like, I'm not about to be gaslit by social media. So there are people who do not like Joss. And because of that, that colors the way you see stories. And that's not a problem. That's not a bad thing. I don't like Nina. So it color, and I haven't liked her since it was Michelle Stafford, right? So it colors the way that I see the story. I saw somebody being like, it doesn't matter what Nina does, Nina haters are always gonna hate her. Thank you for noticing. Absolutely, you are correct. Like, I'm never gonna like her. I'm gonna always see everything she does as being like manipulative, shady, isolating of something. Like, I'm gonna always see those things because that is how I feel about the character. And I'm honest about it. And so if Nina is like upset about something or if she gets salty, I'm gonna be like, yes, I love it. I'm not gonna hide behind not liking her and be like, no, no, this is the way I see the story. And so people don't like Carly, people don't like Joss. And then when you say, oh, like you don't like Carly or Joss, they're like, what do you mean? I actually see the story. No, it's okay. Because like that is like the reason we watch the show. If you don't like somebody, or if you do like somebody, like that changes and colors the way you see the situation. Look at me being an '07 keyboard warrior. I typed out that Sam did Liz a favor and she should have been watching her kids. I said this. like, like, I was a mess. I am embarrassed at the mess I was, but it certainly like shaped the way I saw it because of like my fandom. And and so because I can like honestly say that, I just am not gonna be gaslit by people who are like, oh, this is not because I don't like a certain character. Yes, it is. And that's okay. That's actually why we watch the show. So anyway, less social media for me. I'm gonna try to figure out how to find that balance between posting our content and like actually being able to sit and enjoy a story, because some Twitter gets wild sometimes.
Yeah. Y'all be having some wild conversations. For me, one, I have three things. One, again, they're still with this whole Austin blaming, and I'm tired of it. That needs to stop. I mean, when Brooklyn came in all hot and bothered, like, Austin, if it wasn't for you, I'm like, girl, sit down, shut up, stop it. I am so sick of it. And the show is keeping on doing it. And I'm just like, stop. Um, I'm a little concerned that it seems that they're making Sona to be about whether or not Sonny is on his meds. And if I was Nina, that would bother me. And I think she's seeing that a little bit. Like, I don't like one, we haven't really resolved whether or not Sonny is on his meds or not. And so it seems like, why would he go on drinking binges while he's on medication? And why is the serious effects of being on medication and drinking is not being, really portrayed? And that's something that GH did with when Trina was like drugged, had a mix of drugs and alcohol, and physically we didn't really see the effects of how dangerous that is. And now they're doing it again with Sonny being on his meds and then going on drinking binges. Maybe they're saying, okay, well, his bad behavior is enough, but I think there's something wrong with doing that physically that they're not really actually accurately portraying. And so I'm bothered by it. But again, Nina only being with Sonny and Sonny manipulating her when he's drunk and or he's trying to get her off the topic of him being on his meds. If I was Nina, I'd be seriously concerned about it and I wouldn't fall for it. But apparently she's so sprung off of whatever is going on with Mike or Sonny or whatever that she's not really fully realizing that. And so I don't like it. I don't want to see it. Also don't want to see the porn revenge. I'm not here for it. That's horrible. And there's so many different ways that Esme can cause trouble, but this porn revenge thing shouldn't be, we should forget about it. We should not give it any kind of, attention, and GH shouldn't either, but whatever. And again, with the drugs, I know that I'm surprised. I had mentioned before that I was surprised that Sasha, hadn't turned to drugs at this time, but now it seems like, I don't know, just kind of gratuitous almost. Like it doesn't seem like real, like her going to drugs in order to avoid having a relationship with Brando. So I'm not necessarily excited to see that, but apparently they're going to go there. So what can he do?
I appreciated that it was like Sasha basically was like, I gotta spend this time with Brando, give me some drugs. Like I was just like, damn, is this romantic?
Like all this man's trying to do is love you. And then you're just like, I can't. I'm gonna go to drugs.
He tried to take you to Niagara Falls to have a little getaway. You was like, I cannot do this shit sober. And you know what? I understand not being able to travel sober, but now my man.
Yikes. Yeah, well, that was great relationship advice from Sonny.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's what I put as my hot take. I was like, Sonny's the last person Brando should be taking advice from.
Sonny.
No. I mean, he was trying to like create a sister-wife situation with Nina and Carly, so
right. Are you actually seeing what a mess his life is like romantically, and you're thinking, oh, this is somebody I should admire?
The advice should be flowing from the other direction,
right?
Or neither direction.
Neither direction. Yeah, the one thing was.
I also think that you're completely right about I definitely thought they were going to go the way of, and this is to Sandra's point about not developing these teens or these legacy characters. I thought they were going to go the way of having Esme seduce Cameron. Mm-hmm. I think that would have been interesting. I think that was like the whole thing, like they have chemistry. The whole thing that was like, oh, yeah. I'd love to see angry Cameron and like have him like go like be messy with her and like turn her against, or like well, first of all, I'm down with Sandra's agenda of getting Jocelyn a girlfriend. There's a whole thread. Sandra, you should retweet it because it was amazing. The kind of fanfic that you did, and I was like, get y'all in the writers' room for this.
Oh, it's
And
on. It's on. Just, find me on Twitter. It's top. I'm gonna pin it actually.
Yeah.
there you go. It was really, really good. And it would like if Cam could have seen that, been salty, like Esme been whispering in his ear, like, let's get it, like, and then like that could have been their little situation. That would have been interesting. Somebody, I think it was Tara, was like talking about the difference between like what Joss does and like what they had like other teens doing, like Brenda, who was like a business owner and a model and a messing with a mobster, all that at 18, and Joss is like, where can we have sex? And it's like, y'all gotta bring these storylines into like the new century. Like, there's no reason that a rich heiress doesn't know where she's gonna have sex at. Just get a hotel room, get out of here. Like, this should not be a plot point. It's very dumb. You know what I'm saying? And then that could have been some conflict between her and Cam, where she's just like throwing money around, like, I'm a fucking heiress, like I will buy whatever. And Cam is salty, like, well, I work at, Kelly's, I can't do that. Like, that could be some actual tension between them, but there's really nothing. And it's just like all like bad plot driven, not just plot driven, but bad plot driven. And I don't know. It's very disappointing.
Like y'all have basically touched on at least everything on my less of list. Like I had like contingency points, and y'all pretty much hit all of them. I when they showed that Chaos had their little sex scene, I shouldn't say that, had their sex scene taped by Esme, I just remember being like, first of all, I was so mad about Trina being drugged that I was like, the fuck, I don't even care. I was mad that I didn't even I wasn't given the opportunity to care, because I'm like, this is kind of a big deal. And then when I was like able to sit with it for a while, I was like, I really don't want them to do this, because I was like, I can see, like, are they going to try to blame this on Trina? And I was like, I could do with a lot, but like, this is such a stretch that anyone could ever believe that Trina would do something like this to anyone, let alone her two best friends.
Right.
That makes no sense. So I was just like, maybe she'll like blackmail someone. Like, that makes sense. These kids are rich. These kids have access to resources. Like, blackmail Trina to stay away from Spencer, or vice versa. Like, there's so many different directions, even though I really didn't want them to go in this direction, period, that they could have gone. And it seems like they're going to go with the framing Trina direction. And it doesn't make Esme look very smart as a villain. And it doesn't look great for Chaos, they're already in the doghouse because of what happened at the cabin. And I don't think that sex crimes as punishment or plot device is just it. As mad as I am at Joss for what happened, both at the cabin, but actually what I'm really pissed about was what happened at Kelly's. I wouldn't want this sex tape thing to happen to Esme. That's how much I don't want it. Like, there's just nothing that you could possibly do to ever deserve this. And I don't know if that's I don't think the writers are approaching it necessarily from that standpoint, like Joss deserves this, but like, that's what the narrative has become, right? When you, even if people aren't taking it to the streets, right, and like making these points on Twitter, there is the soap trope, and this trope in story, like patriarchal storytelling in general, where we use sexual assault to take female characters a peg down. We use it to redeem them, to give them story, to change the direction of their character. And that is what revenge porn is. It's sexual assault. End of story. End of statement. And I never trusted GH to handle any aspect of this storyline at all, but I certainly like the deeper that they go into it, the more I'm like, what the hell are you doing? What the hell are you doing? But I guess it also shouldn't be surprising considering like what they're doing with the Sona medication stuff, and the conversation around the medication and alcohol. I mean, there's just too many weird consent things happening. I mean, Sona itself is such a weird storyline around consent. And now they're trying to like reference how it's complicated, but they're still portraying Sonny and Nina like they're teenagers, like having Nina hide in the hallway when Dante showed up and her like being so swept away by Sonny's charms that she forgot that they were having a conversation about him being on his meds and on a bender enough for her to like be so swept away to kiss him. This is not romantic.
Dude really left her Marvin's Room ass like voicemail. Like he's like, I know you love Mike. I was cringing the whole time. I was like, is this for real?
Right, and that was so insulting. Like, why would she think that was romantic at all?
Why did we have a listening party the morning after? Like, he was like, no. Oh, I don't remember shit. Go ahead and play it.
Don't tell Laura Wright, but I fast forwarded that shit. I couldn't. Like, no.
We need to see this again.
I was like, I can't. I also, do you know how mad I was on Friday when they replayed the kiss from Thursday? I was like, is this an attack on me?
It is. It is.
It felt personal. Sorry.
They're like, oh, this is gonna get Tracy. Let's redo it.
Frank was like, I seen her tweets. I got something for her.
You know what? This will be what makes you like Sona. You just need to see it again.
My face was so stupid. Okay. Nope.
Well, this feels like such a great moment to transition actually into one of our personal cornerstone topics of the show, which is toxic men.
Yeah.
In soaps. And so I'm gonna roll it over to Tracy to set it up for us.
Yeah, so I wanted to deep dive this week into a couple things. So I was not watching during the Sonny and Brenda era yet, but what came up in my YouTube when I was like watching another video was like maybe I would like want to watch the scene with Brenda wearing the wire, and I was like, oh, maybe because I haven't actually watched it before. I was horrified, obviously. But I don't want to talk too much about that, but I do want to talk about like male-centric love triangles versus like female-centric ones, because Sonny and Brenda and Jax is kind of like the one for the ages, versus like what we're seeing now with like Sona and or Carsona, as it's being called. And then I just want to talk a little bit about like Sonny as a character and like what the differences between the 90s and now and what holds up. So yeah, I really want to get into all of that. Sandra, you were watching during this time. I would love to hear from you.
Well, I mean, this is one of the many reasons why I don't mess with Sonny Corinthos. Like, him and Brenda were, of course, very entertaining to watch. There's no denying that. There's no denying their chemistry. There's also no denying that Brenda is wild. Brenda is cray-cray. And I actually love how wild Brenda is, and like love Vanessa Marcel, and like she'll always have a special place in my heart, as will Brenda. But it, to me, even as, and I mean, I think part of this had to do with I was a kid at the time, you know, so I really just like didn't understand. I was like, what why do people like this? And I'm happy to say I still feel that way. So sometimes children, the wisdom of the babes, you know, the wisdom of the babes. There of course are other toxic like love story stuff that I've been into and I still am sometimes. It's not even to shame anyone for liking problematic stuff. Like that's not my intention, but I think it was also just so normal in soaps and on television for this kind of toxicity and this like chemistry being like violent chemistry being sexy, being like, oh, he just can't help himself. He just loves her so much. When he says you want to make me like my stepfather? Sir, only you can do that. That's not on Brenda, no matter what Brenda does. And him like violently shaking her. I forgot about that because I also like, I do not rewatch Brenda and Sonny stuff for this reason. There's actually a lot of the 90s storylines that like I really can't rewatch because I don't wish to re-traumatize myself that
way. Yeah, I mean, I understand like the appeal of them visually because like early Maurice Bernard with those dimples, like that was like 90s gold. And obviously Vanessa Marcel is just like, I mean, look at the material, she's gorgeous. And so that I think like gave in their chemistry was like, you know, amazing. And so it gave them, I think, out of license to, or what they felt was like out of license to move in that way. And I think it actually, because she is so gorgeous, like is the reason that we had this like female centric triangle. Because I think at the time, like a lot of, you know, even now, like they're driven by women fighting over this man, which is like, I hate that about what's happening with Carsona. Yeah, and I also hate the idea when people say like, oh well, this is like a soap trope or this is how soaps are, because I think just like anything else, like we should, like soap should evolve with the times, and a lot of GH is not doing that. So we see that with technology. So like shit like, you know, not cloning Trina's phone, just like, so we're all talking about, is just the case gonna be like what you think this is Trina's phone? Or like the idea that somebody's like a whole fucking mob boss, but nobody like checked to see or put his picture on Twitter or something. Like those kind of things don't keep up with the times. And I think that Brenda and Sonny is also a storyline that doesn't keep up with the times. I don't know, were you watching at that time, Tanya?
I wasn't not as strongly as I am now. And I think you're right in the whole timeliness thing, because one of the things about the whole mobster thing back in the day, I mean, that was something that, you know, we, I guess, as a society or, you know, entertainment wise, it was interesting to be all up in the mix of, you know, gangsters and having moral ambiguity where the idea of Brenda doing the right thing and putting a was it a hearing monitor against
Oh, The Wire.
a wire against Sonny is horrible. I mean, basically, Sonny is a criminal. And so her wanting to make sure that he gets arrested is not actually a bad thing. But I probably fell into this whole idea of, ooh, Brenda's a traitor and she deserves this, because I was all romanticizing Sonny at the time, even though I think I think I'm not a fan of Brenda and Sonny, because I guess I'm team Carly. But I think at the same time I do feel like, you know, people romanticize, you know, the Brenda and Sonny relationship just because at the time he was a romantic hero when really he wasn't a hero. And so and I still feel like, I mean, he left her at the altar, made her feel like a fool, and it just had her begging, don't leave me. I mean, like, dude, this man is not good for you. Why are you doing this? And the reason why I liked Carly is because Carly was just as bad as he was. And so it's like I was a little bit more okay with it. Whereas, Brenda was almost trying to redeem him and he wasn't appreciating it. So it's just like, I'm not trying to be in a relationship with a gangster. I have a son, I have all this. And he's like, well, I can't leave my life. I'm not going to. I'm never going to choose you over my life. And that's not something that I enjoyed.
It's not romantic.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Jason story.
Right. Carly's perfectly okay with being a mobster's wife. That's not her problem with Sonny. Her problem is that he sleeps around with other people. But
publicly and embarrasses her.
Publicly,
if it was privately.
Yeah. But Brenda was like trying to change him and trying to be different or have him be different, and it wasn't going to work.
Yeah, something I'm like thinking about a lot with like the parallels with Sona is that I feel like they constantly like reach back to the 90s in ways that are trying to redeem Sonny. So like if you look at what happened this week, he brings Nina to the penthouse. He's like, my best friend Stone. Oh, it's interesting that you're like talking about Stone. Let that man rest. Because like for the past 20 years, your best friend's been Jason. But like talking about Jason doesn't actually redeem you. Talking about Stone and reminding people why you were ever a character that was rootable does. In the same ways that when he finds out about Peter, the first thing he does is like, let me call Anna, right? Because like Anna is a person who anchors him and redeems him in the same ways that Laura does. And so they constantly like reach back into the 90s, in the early 2000s for like these things to like redeem Sonny when he's doing unredeemable things, or irredeemable things. I was also struck. I don't really have a Carly versus Brenda thing because I didn't start watching until right after Sarah Brown left, and so yeah, I mean Carly was like jealous of Brenda. I think everybody has been. They wrote Sam as being really jealous of Brenda, but I was not around for I think the most toxic, like physically toxic parts of the Sonny and Brenda relationship. And I think to your point, like, yeah, like that was like forgiven, that explosive chemistry that like, I'm gonna throw barware, I'm gonna like scare you, I'm gonna like, whatever. Brenda was written as like somebody who like kind of cowered away from some of that. Whereas so like a Carly is written as somebody who got with you. Like she's gonna throw that barware right back at you. And for some reason that was like seen as romantic when it was really toxic, which is also interesting. Yeah, I don't know. But want to hear what y'all think about like female-centric love triangles versus male-centric ones.
I mean, male-centric ones are awful. And I think what was interesting about the Brenda Jack Sonny love triangle is that like I'm realizing in retrospect, it was like the only reason why I fucked with Jax was I was agenda shipping. Like I was just like, yeah, just whatever. He's not Sonny. He's a billionaire and he's not Sonny. I've never seen him throw Brenda around, so we're doing this. And similar when Carjacks got together, I was just like, oh, Sonny's gonna hate it. Great, let's do it. And that's just not enough. So that's like my little twist on the commentary around the woman-centric love triangle is also like it wasn't all of that either. But it was less toxic than I guess like Carly and Brenda fighting over Sonny, for example. Although very funny. Carly and Brenda's rivalry is amongst the most humorous to me. And I actually, if only we could just take the men out of it and it just them fighting over things that weren't men, I would ship it so hard, actually.
I remember when Brenda came back and made Carly think she slept with Michael. Carly was going to lose it. I was like, this is, even though this was very problematic,
Extremely.
considering the context of it, I did laugh. I also, this is my petty, I think it's really interesting to see Mo go so hard for Sona on social media, because the reality for me about Sonny is that he's actually never carried a real pairing outside of Carly and Brenda. Like nobody has like stuck, nobody, like people might like it or like at the time, but these are not like iconic pairings. They're not pairings. Like I'm not going back to watch the Sonny Connie arc. I don't care. Like nobody's going back to watch Sonny and Reese, or I'm certainly not going back to watch Sonny and Emily. Whereas to like, I know, so sorry to bring it up. Whereas to like Carly has actually, so I think a lot of people, because I hate Sona so much, always think I'm like a Carson shipper, and I'm like no, abort. I'm not a Carson shipper. Um, but Carly has like carried pairings, like, so there's Sonny, there's Jax, there's Todd Manning, like she was like really funny when her and AJ hooked up, you know, like, so even Laura Wright, it's Carly, so not even Carly over time, but Laura Wright's Carly has like carried pairings outside of Sonny. And so I mean, you know, whatever, people like Sona, I'm never gonna like it. I could never stand. I stand like consequences, and I feel like they just don't have that. I actually really like Carly and Drew. I know that is not as popular as people like it to be, but I really like Carly and Drew because I think, you know, for a long time, Mo has been really public that he didn't like Carson. Like that's not a pairing he likes. He doesn't think he gets to grow in it. He doesn't like Carson, and so Steve Burton was clearly phoning it in during like this like last Jarly go round. And so I think, you know, I would love Laura Wright to like have somebody who really enjoys working with her and enjoys being in a working like relationship with her to actually be on screen with her. The kind of what if that I always reference when they did like the crossover when Carly Jax met Ryan Lavery, or Carly Corinthos Jax met Ryan Lavery. Carly was like fun and funny and not so serious, and like, and so I would love to see her be that again. And I think, you know, since Drew to me is not necessarily Drew, I'm down with Carly and Drew Lavery.
Sure.
I'd be down for a Carly Chase Lavery triangle. Yes, it's still on the agenda.
You're about to get us canceled.
Oh, okay.
I still want to see it happen. And I think it would be a ball. I think it would be the most watched episode ever.
Look, Chase and Brooklyn had their first kiss over children's snacks. Carly would turn Chase out, and I'm not prepared for that. Like, I'm just not prepared for what that would be, you know?
Yeah.
Though it would be messy, because I am thinking about Michael, because, you know, the ship of my heart is actually Chikel. And so Michael would actually be very jealous.
I don't. I love Chikel, although I have complicated feelings about it now, because of the way that Michael has been also leveraging his toxic masculinity against Chase.
Yes.
So, I mean, just to bring it back to toxic masculinity, it's just like, well, what relationships on the show are even like actually disrupting toxic masculinity. I think I think that Drew is a character that both portrayed by Billy and by Cameron, who relies less on the toxic masculinity tropes. Like he is, well, first of all, Drew Matheson in particular is very jovial. Like it's not about, for him, it's not about like flexing his masculinity all the time. He doesn't feel like he has to, like he's just he's also just like a laid back dude. And I think Chase actually is someone who because he's played like such a puppy dog, is more of that good boy, like sweet little innocent good-hearted boy trope, and that's what they're playing with him in Brooklyn. So even though that's not my favorite pairing, I think that's a pairing that I don't see as much of that toxic masculinity stuff coming up. Although it was strange when we couldn't really tell if Chase liked her, and that was starting to edge into some weird stuff, but you know, I'm over that now. But, and I think, yeah, it seems like a lot of the issues with toxic masculinity on the show like root back to the 90s, like big hitters, right? Like Sonny, Jason, Luke, rest in pieces. You know, some of like Duke stuff with Duke and Anna, even like some of Robert's stuff. And a lot of the more interesting takes on masculinity are from the newer characters. I think Brando is an interesting like take on masculinity, because he is very like, I love boxing and I can do the mob stuff. I fix cars, but he doesn't talk about his feelings with Sasha.
Yeah. I really wish they would have invested more into Brando and Sasha. I think that they are very cute together. I think that we saw a lot of their like fun, flirty relationship either like during the pregnancy and, you know, pre-dead baby Christmas. And so they deserve to actually have lived in some of the like funness, because honestly, Sasha and Michael was like an interesting pairing. It wasn't my favorite. I wasn't like long term or shipping, but she brought like a lightness out of Michael. He was able to like flex like, I'm a rich dude, and not in like this super toxic way, but in this like, I'm gonna impress you kind of way. It was like reminiscent to like a Jax and Courtney without that weird ass bet. You know what I'm saying? Like that was like the part that disgusted me about what was going on with Jackson Courtney. But like to see Michael be like, actually, I'm a Corinthos quarter man, I'm gonna take you out, girl, was like very like cute to me. And I think that Chase and BLQ would actually benefit to like if they moved into like less angsty and more rom-com. Yeah. Especially with like understanding that they have relationships or like have feelings for each other now. The like seriousness of their storyline, the being saddled with the baby, all of that like actually just did them no favors, because neither of them, like that's neither of their sweet spots. And I think once we saw like the kind of light switch of Chase actually does like Brooklyn, that changed the dynamic of their relationship and made me like them more. And to your point from last week, Sandra, we need couples like them. So I would love if they were written from a perspective like, let's give people some happiness. I know this is a soap, but it doesn't have to be all angst. Like people can be happy on a soap, and they haven't allowed people to do that. And I'll also say this, and then Tanya, if you have anything else, we can wrap it up before hot takes. I think that what we saw from Nixon Falls was this misunderstanding of what couplings are. I think that in like where we are now, people are more willing to like let go of like our super couples. Like we're more willing to like be more fluid and flexible, whereas to like it like back in the day, like that was like a really big thing. So I think that Carson could have been like Nixon Falls was like designed to like give Mo a break from being Sonny and to like break up Carson. So we have essentially been sitting through the breakup of Carson for almost 2 years now. It really didn't need to be all that, right? Like y'all could have broke up Carson and we would have been fine. But the annoying thing about it is that it's been so long and so contrived to get to a breakup. It was unnecessary. Let these people. If I was a Nina fan, which I would never, but if I was a Nina fan, I would like hate the way the storyline is playing out. This is bad. They really had old girl like in the back when Dante was there. And we've already seen the like kind of relationship or like the confrontation between Sonny, Nina, and Carly play out. We actually don't need that again. It would have been way more interesting to see the confrontation between them and Dante. And I like was seeing like, again, this is me needing to be on social media more, but like in the preview, obviously we saw that Drew Lavery is gonna like be telling Nina like, I'm good on you. And people were like, oh, this is like Nina, this is like Drew propping up Carly, F that. I'm like, actually, Drew just propped up Sonny to Curtis. They were like, he like was just like, oh yeah, we have history, he's not that bad. Actually, your history proves he's that bad, one. But also like they have Drew on prop duty. And the reception that Drew gave Nina is actually the reception that more people should have given Nina. And then it will make their story more rootable. Like we don't have to give up characterization to like see forward movement. They would be more interesting if Sonny was like mad at Nina for like whatever in his life, but like they still got together. So I don't know if they're trying to like be to like kind of close the book in. I don't know if they're trying to be like the anti Brenda and Sonny with like no fire, no like anger, whatever. And they like swung the pendulum too far the other way because there's actually reason to be mad at Nina. And it would be more interesting if they played through that and they got together anyway. For me. Yeah. Do you have anything, Tanya, before we go to hot takes?
Not necessarily on this topic. I do just want to agree with you that I think, yeah, Nina in this story, if I was her, I wouldn't want to be in this relationship. But she's, you know, enamored, I guess, with the idea of her being with Mike and thinking she could probably change Sonny. I don't think that's going to happen. I was also thinking it does seem the toxic masculinity thing is almost generational. Because there's a like you know Chase and except for Michael, you guys are thinking that Michael's demonstrating toxic masculinity with Willow, but the rest of the cast don't really seem to have that. Finn doesn't really either, but I think I don't know, I feel like he's younger in a sense, even though he's probably older than Jason and Michael. I don't know, but
he's just been around less. He was capitalized recently. That's
right. But yeah, so I do see that. I think it's being played out a little bit, and hopefully we see a little bit less of it. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got.
Drop those hot takes.
What do I have for hot take?
Do I have any?
So mine's are like, I do want to actually, and I didn't really give him props, but I do want to give a shout out to Nicholas Chavez for his performance with Dad. That I think was really great. You know, showing the vulnerability of, yes, you know, come have a seat with me, and then just flashing on him, you know. I loved it. I guess for Wednesday, I have mine's a kind of day by day. I had some weird comments about Peter because I was just like, at first, I mean, folks were really thinking that he was dead, and I had this whole, you know, thought in my head, like roaches never die, they just multiply. That's how I think about Peter. I think I was like really thinking that he wasn't really dead, and but he died on Wednesday. Thursday, again, you know, was kind of question, is actually Sonny on his meds or not? And, you know, BLQ and Leather, Bailey Louise, no, she's Wheezy Faison. Those are my thoughts. My last one was for Friday. Carly showing up while Nina is at the penthouse. I wrote down dun 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 because this is so not a shocking cliffhanger. It's not at all. But you know, when they try to make it seem like it's something that it's not, I was just like, okay, it's not a cliffhanger at all. It's not surprising. And yeah, I'm actually more looking forward to seeing what Drew has to say to Nina than what Carly and Sonny going at it again for no reason. I'm
I
hoping,
love it.
yeah, I'm hoping this is the last time Carly feels the need to run and check on Sonny, unless she figures out that Sonny's not taking his meds. I'm still mad that no one has told her about this at all. I mean, because she and Jason were really on top of Sonny and his, you know, medication, and she has no clue. And the fact that she's not even thinking about it is really telling that Carson is over, because she's not even considering that aspect.
I personally love that she doesn't know, and she doesn't need to know. It's not any of her business, because
Yeah,
he needs to take care of himself. It's not her job to police his medication. I would say with the stuff about Sonny and his meds, oh, I have so many complicated feelings about it. Most of it being that, like, I feel like there's this conversation of like, he wouldn't be doing this if he wasn't on his meds, or like people are being disrespectful, talking shit on him because he has a mental illness. Like, mental illness does not define people's personalities. Like, it can show up in the way that people express their personalities. It can show up in their behaviors, certainly, and like the extremes of their behaviors and their willingness to take accountability or not. But some of this is just like, you're acting like a piece of shit. And whether or not he's manic or not, whether or not he is on his meds, or whether or not he is like fully his chemistry is balanced, whatever that means, right? Because that's also like, everyone's brain chemistry is just different. He is still responsible for himself. He's still responsible for his behavior. And part of his work is also like, that is also part of moving through having like mental health issues, is that when you come back into balance, or as you are trying to pull yourself up out of the hole that has been created by your behavior and also by circumstances that are sometimes out of your control, but like, you have to reckon with what has happened. That's the only way out. You have to reckon with your behavior. You have to reckon with the ways in which your behavior has impacted the people in your lives. And I'm speaking from a place of someone who has had mental health issues, but also someone who has cared for and had a lot of people in my life who have had mental health issues. And some of whom, and there have been times when I have done things, right, that felt out of character or were things that I wouldn't normally do, and I still had to own them and be accountable to the people in my life. And the same for people in the other direction. Like, if someone wasn't willing to be accountable, there had to be a point where I'm like, well, I have compassion for you. I'm gonna have compassion for you from far, far away, because that's not my business.
Yeah. And I think, Sandra, you said this a couple weeks ago, and I really appreciated it, which was, this is why we actually don't want to be having these conversations about soap characters. This is actually too heavy to be talking about with soaps. That's why we prefer something like DID, which is like, you know what I'm saying? Which is like soap DID, as opposed to like something that is like so ever present and like up for all of this discussion. You actually don't get to use someone's mental health diagnosis to excuse toxicity, not just toxic masculinity, but toxicity. right? And if we're gonna really like have to keep going down this rabbit hole and pull back the layers, let's talk about it. Nina helped upend his life that put him in this position. Like, but these are like the conversations that we're not gonna have because like the agenda is to ship, not necessarily your agenda ship, but your agenda is to ship this like really fucked up couple. Like, let's just own it. Like, it's trash. Like, it is really, and that is, I think, what comes to like the no responsibility part of it, which is like just this. One of my hot takes was like, I actually don't feel bad for BLQ. Like, I get it. Like, she's giving like, Amanda's giving like moving performances, but I don't feel bad for you because I keep remembering that the whole thing came back down to trying to get like shares of your family's company. You made up a baby, which is why people thought you were pregnant in the first place, and then this like ability to like help someone fell into your lap, and then you kept lying when y'all didn't need to. So you getting attached to this baby actually does not have anything to do with me.
And then blaming the people who had nothing, who had no idea what you were doing for, having this catastrophe happen of Peter,
Right.
And then just treating people still like bitchy for no reason.
Yep, because truth be told, if your priority was to just keep this baby safe, then you should have been in this hostage. You shouldn't have been doing anything that will put more pressure or cause more heat on you. You should have been sending your ass down and taking care of this baby. That was not what you were doing. You were doing everything else. And so, like, I just cannot feel bad for something that actually wasn't even Austin's fault. To Sandra's point, all he did was point out how to get a fucking patient ID, and it's in the name. Like, anybody could have told him how to do that. He could have went to the hospital and asked that question.
He could have went to Monica, and I bet you they wouldn't have been blaming Monica for it. They were like, "Oh, Monica, you just didn't know what was happening. It's not your fault." But they just, like Brooklyn just wants to make Austin a villain no matter what.
And they have to manufacture fake drama for Austin and Maxie, I guess, to make us care about their coupling.
Or hopefully to break them up.
Spoiler alert.
So
I will not care.
I'm thinking that they use this to break them up so he can go to a Brit. And I will be fine with that.
See, what I don't want, I actually, if they're going to, because that's the thing, is that GH doesn't course correct when a couple doesn't work.
Right.
And so what I actually want is for Maxie and Austin to overcome this fake drama and just be together so that they can actually be the obstacle to other couplings for these two characters. Like, I would like to see Austin with Britt and Maxie with literally anyone else. Anyone. I was saying Spinelli before, but I'm not attached. Like, just
it could be anybody.
Anyone, not this. Obviously not Peter. He's gone. Although I was being a little rude and saying I wanted Paxi Endgame, but I take it back. I was upset. But yeah, I just don't care. Like, I like want to care about Austin because I love Roger. And I do think the character has potential, but not if they attach him to Maxie, because it's just like more like they obviously didn't have a plan for him coming in. And so I was like, cool, just like chem test him with people and then like actually just like let this play out organically. This could be great. And then they did this. Sure. Okay.
Another hot take. Was Nicholas mad at Marcus? Did he have to embarrass him this way? I wasn't embarrassed. Embarrassing.
I thought Nicholas was so generous. He was such a generous partner. And it was actually Marcus who was trying to overpower Nicholas. Because like you could see with Nicholas, the way that he was approaching it, like Nicholas Chavez, it was like you could see the build, right, to the yelling. And Marcus just was like, I'm going to yell as loudly as I possibly can, almost out of nowhere. And like there was something like, right, because Spencer called Ava a bitch, which was problematic, and I applauded when it happened because it was like very in character, right? And then of course it set up the whole like Nicholas being like, you don't ever say that about any woman, and then Spencer being like, oh, you mean so we can shoot women, but we're not going to call them bitches? Got it. So shot down
Feminism.
Nicholas Cassadine's liberal feminism. And so like when I went back and rewatched that, I was just like, oh, Marcus is like trying here for once, but it's like he was so caught up, or at least this is my perception, of course I'm not in his head, thank God, but like it felt like he was like, I really got to show him what I could do, so I'm gonna yell, and it didn't hit. And then like Nicholas Chavez was being more subdued and was much more compelling. And so like the line after that was like, for Marcus, was lower your voice. Sir, you were just yelling much louder than him. Like, why don't you track the text a little bit before making these weird acting decisions? But what do I know?
You're being generous, because I wasn't
struggle acting like those struggle vocals.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about Marcus at all. So you're being very generous. It was all about Nicholas for me. That's why I guffawed when Tracy said that, because
it wasn't good. And I thought that it was like a really good point, and it was like necessary. It was like this, I just kept being like, damn, Nicholas Chavez deserves Tyler Christopher. That's all I could think, because these scenes, it's just somebody like reading their lines. It's not any reaction to him. It's not, like this could be my child's Emmy reel, and he can't because Marcus is such a fuck up. Like, I'm tired of him. I'm tired of it.
Thankfully, they're diversifying Nicholas Chavez's scenes, so he doesn't have to. Because I feel like I felt that way about like some of his like scenes from last year, and when he asked about what should be on his Emmy reel, and I was like, well, he was good. Those scenes between Spencer and Nicholas should have been like top of the list, and for me it was actually the scenes with Maura, because that to me is more impressive, being able to hold your own with Maura West versus
as opposed
like
to embarrass your TV dad.
Acting circles around your TV dad, who should in those scenes have been the generous partner, but instead was just giving Spencer or giving Nicholas Chavez absolutely nothing. He's giving nothing.
He's giving negative.
Avoid.
Ugh. Anyway, but those scenes, like I felt like that scene was like really important. The conversation was really important. I just wish it wasn't. I just wish it was better acted on the other end. Nicholas Chavez always shows up and gives his A game, and here comes Marcus giving his 0%, and I hate it. I'm tired of it. I don't know if you could tell from my voice, I'm tired of it. Why didn't Maxie keep Jax's house? Is it too far away from Max? Was like my thought.
Too far away.
Why is Max from Mac? She has to drop off her children off at Mac's house. Oh, I still feel like the actor who played Shiloh would have been a good Peter. But still good riddance. My hot takes are all over the place. You know what? Nope, that's all I got.
It was like it wasn't a week where you just like you're getting like hot takes all over the place.
I said everything I had to say earlier, that's all my takes.
Yeah. Yeah, there wasn't. I think you're right, Tanya. That it wasn't a take generating week. I loved. I loved everything that you said about Mora. Double click all of that. That look with the leather jacket, like hanging on the side, but then that like flowy gray like blouse that had like the cape sleeves.
Yes.
I was like, you are here for a meeting with your rival.
And her hair, her side part and her hair, oh my God.
Yes, I loved it. I loved all the nuance in that scene. I also love the performance that she kind of like brought to Laura. I thought Laura like shot right back at her. I loved seeing how actually shook Carly was after the conversation, where she had to kind of like get herself together. Like she knew that she actually overplayed her hand there. And I love actually when Carly has those moments. It's not about like shit blowing up in Carly's face for me, because like in those moments she always knows how to like just shoot back and like blow through things and not really sit with the consequences. But it's like those little subtle moments where she gets shaken up and she has to play it like she's not, that I really enjoy for her character. And like those are, I'm like, that's when I'm like, okay, Carly, that's rootable actually.
I love that it was from Ava.
Yeah. And I also love that it takes a lot out of Carly to deal with Ava, because Ava is a true adversary.
Yes.
Nina is nothing. Nina is just like a, you know, whatever. But Ava, she has to steel herself and she has to get ready and she has to come with a game plan and she has to look fierce. She has to, you know, like when Ava came upon her at the yoga studio, she wasn't ready. She's like, I'm not trying to deal with you right now. I'm trying to do this. I need you to go away. She has to be ready to deal with Ava, to go toe to toe with her. And that's why I love it.
And I love how Ava was just like, so here, I'm going to come in with my power analysis. Why you instead of the new girl who's my little friend?
Oh, it was so good.
Like, why are you calling me in to want something from me? Oh no, that was your first mistake, honey. And that I also felt like she was being sincere with Carly too.
Mm-hmm.
So she both was just like, don't try to play me, and also like, you're gonna be in Avery's life. Now, what that's gonna look like, ... But yeah. I think that's like, it's like all the reasons why I love Ava in such a like subtle scene. And some of the things that I like most about their particular rivalry. So Mora West, just no one's doing it like Mora West. Just no one.
Just, my God, fierce in every single scene. Like you cannot give her something that she cannot do.
No.
She can go from like, and I love what you said. I love that the scene started with her just being like, let me dress you down. But I actually love my child. Unlike the bullshit that you and Sonny were on, when you're trying to keep my child away from me, I'm looking at what's best for her. We formed an alliance when Sonny was gone. That's not going to stop now. And that was like all I was like asking for in this scene with her and Nicholas. Like that is like the follow-up I wanted, to be like, I don't fuck with her. We've had our beefs. We actually are never going to be friends. But my daughter comes first, and I appreciated that, because it's that's so important for Ava's character, kind of post Kiki. So like post Kiki, like she's been a really mothering figure to Trina, and we all are like, why does she not have her child Avery?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's really important for Ava's character.
Something I haven't said all that I have to say about Trina's roommate, also known as Jocelyn John Jax. You know I'm mad when I'm using these legacy characters' full names. I brought you into this world and I can take you out.
You have this mama look like I'm about to give you the read of your life. Bring it.
girl, you know better than this. You know better than this. You have been better than this. You are a mess. It was, of course, like the very obvious stuff around like, stop telling Trina's business to the person that you all have already identified as a mutual enemy, and trust that Trina's going to be strategic. I do think that there's maybe Trina might have a little bit of internalized guilt around the the ambiguous nature of her and Spencer's relationship while she's, he's still with Esme. She doesn't know the full depth of how disturbed Esme is, right? But she knows like this she's shady, and also Trina is like an ethical person. And so I'm sure there was some kernel of whatever, but also Trina knows what Esme is about. She's had conversations with Joss about it. She's had conversations with Portia about it, with her dad, even with Spencer. Like even Spencer she has named to Spencer exactly what she sees Esme to be, and Spencer basically confirmed it. So even though Joss doesn't have all the information, it like shows like a lack of trust in Trina's judgment, which there's not a whole lot that's ever happened to make us question Trina's judgment, except for maybe that crazy ass plan to expose Spencer. And you know who loved that? Jocelyn John Jacks. All right. So don't be coming for Trina's judgment now. And I think also what felt hard about the scene was that gift meant so much to Trina. Like we saw how much it meant to her, and it was very hard for her to bring it up to Jocelyn. Obviously, they're roommates, and she's just now bringing it up. They lived together in the same room, not even the same like house, the same room. And as Joss started going in about the gift, Trina said, "This is like, this is why I didn't tell you. This is why I didn't say anything." And so for Joss just to keep barreling through, it was so insensitive to something that Trina's so sensitive about and has carried so close to her heart, has protected. And so like, it's like, I get that Joss didn't have all the information, and I actually do like this as the conflict versus like, I wish that this would just be the conflict between them and not the sex tape. I'm sure this will play into their conflict moving forward, but it hurt my heart. I was very sad about it and mad. I love the Joss and Trina friendship, and I think the fact that I was so upset about it, and I know other people feel different ways about their friendship, but the fact that I was so upset about it, to me, also spoke to the importance of the relationship and the importance of the performances between the characters, which, however we feel about the characters, Eden, Sydney, Avery, excellent job. Wonderful.
They bring it every time.
They were so good. Some of y'all who have your agenda that now all of a sudden you love Esme, y'all are wild because we were not watching the same scenes. Avery in the background or just like, everything's going according to plan. Like her little background acting was killing me.
She's really good.
This evil, vindictive psycho. And like, I love her for that, but I will never love her. Just to be clear.
Something that you said, like a lot of what you said brought up so much for me around the Joss and Trina friendship. Part of like what was really hard was she identified that Trina doesn't talk about this, or that she doesn't really have a place to go. And then she turned around and was not her place to go. And that was like, ugh. And when I saw that tweet from GH, I was like, oh, you intentionally wrote her this way. Like it is very clear that this has not been who Jocelyn has been to Trina. Like Jocelyn is like the person who barrels through, but like, you know, when Joss found out about Spencer being Victor, she comforted Trina. She wasn't like, you're stupid, you should, you like, it was none of that. It was comforting. It was like listening to your friend. It was all of that. And then she immediately went to go read the fuck out of Spencer. Like that's like showed us how important Trina was to Jocelyn. And so in the scene at Kelly's, the fact that she didn't say, like, listen to her, the fact that it was just like an automatic, like, I'm about to come back at you and not even like hear your perspective. Even Jocelyn actually knows better than that. We've seen Jocelyn be better than that in her friendship with Trina. We've seen Jocelyn be better than that with her mom. Like, we've seen all of that. And so to like see it that way was like really, really disappointing.
Yeah. Yeah. It felt disappointing, but it also felt like I could see her doing it. Like I could see her getting so caught. It's not a justification. It's just like, it's not as much of a stretch for me to believe that she could just like barrel through and be thoughtless as it is for me, for example, to think that she could ever believe that Trina had anything to do with this tape. Or
That's absurd.
Tape, we're so old. It's clear that we like lived through like the Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee sex tape shit, because millennials are like, what's a tape? What are you talking? Or not millennials,
What's a tape?
What's a tape?
And I also, yeah. Oh, go ahead, Tanya. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm fine.
I was gonna say, I also just like am really struck by like this idea, like I don't want to make it seem like I'm giving Jocelyn the benefit of the doubt. I think she was wrong. And I'm also like pulling myself, like, we know how Spencer feels about Trina because we have seen it. Like, we understand the connection, we understand the bond. But like, to think about if I'm 18 and my friend has like been played by this guy time and time again, and I know that she still has feelings for him, me telling her that he's not a good dude for her is not me like hating, it's me watching out for my friend. And so it's not that I think that she was right, but it's that I understood where it was coming from. That I understand why you would say this guy, like basically Spencer has been, in Jocelyn's view, like bad for Trina since the minute he came back to town. He's had her lying. He like popped up with a girlfriend. He turned out to be the stalker. Like all of these things have been like bad. Like you like left. I mean, obviously she didn't check out Trina either, but like you like left with Esme. Like all of these things have happened. So it's clear to me why she would say and warn her against him. And so I think that like there's also like a very weird like maybe conversation that's bubbling up, like, oh, the reason she did it is because she wants Spencer for herself, and I actually think it's very much that she did it because she was looking out for her friend. Maybe not in the way that people think that she should have, but I don't think that it wasn't that she was looking out for her friend.
Can we talk about how Jocelyn actually just wants Trina to herself? Like, that's the thing, is I'm not saying that Jocelyn has feelings for Trina. That's not what I'm saying, although I don't know, who knows. But it's so clear that she is the person that Jocelyn is focused on, like, and that so much of Joss's animosity has to do with Trina's interest in Spencer, and that like, so that this is also part of my little like manifestation I'm trying to do around Jocelyn and her sexuality, which is, this is actually not an uncommon thing for like a young queer woman who's in the closet and may not even be totally conscious of their own feelings, to be like overly fixated on their girlfriends' relationships. It is actually a gay trope. And you know, I think there's lots. It's not to say that that's what every like meaningful female friendship is about, but there is something about the way that I also think that Eden has more chemistry with the girls that she's been partnered with in scenes than most of her male pairings. And I think that it also would be a much more interesting direction to take her storyline than having her be in this like contrived pairing with Cameron that has to be propped with Sprina as a couple. Like Eden and Josh should really have their own storylines. And I think that this, to speak to what I was saying to earlier, like they just haven't given Joss like meaningful characterization. I think something like her struggling around her sexuality to come to terms with it by maybe meeting someone hot on the volleyball team that brings up some magic feelings at volleyball camp or something like that could be very could both be like grounded in a coming of age story and also be something a little bit edgier in a meaningful way and not in a in like a gross exploitative way with a sex tape. Like,
yeah.
So
in the same ways that it was like, you know, it meant something that legacy character Bianca Montgomery was, you know, Erica Kane's daughter was gay, like in a way that wasn't like, oh, we're just going to introduce like a queer character out of nowhere. I think that there's something really interesting about that and gives like Eden something meaty to like hold on to and yeah. Anyway, I like the idea of that.
Yeah, because that was a very intentional choice made by Agnes Dixon. She's like, it's gonna be, we're gonna have a coming out story, and it's gonna be Erica Kane's daughter. And that was to make her grounded in the canvas and to be a character that couldn't just be disposed of. And it did huge things for Bianca's character in a way that she did not have any like really interesting characterization before that. And my final point, also another Eden. So, Eden Regal. I rest my case.
And your case has been made. I bought it. Like I'm Judge Steve Harvey. No, anyway. Sandra, do you want to lead us through predictions?
Sure. Well, we're like in a whole new world now, y'all. Peter August, Theodore August, PD, whatever the fuck we were calling him. We don't even have to remember these nicknames anymore because he's dead. He's dead. His storyline's dead. And of course, there will be, you know, some ramifications for that. And we still have to see some people's reactions, but this leaves a lot of space on the canvas to fill up. And so I think that's mostly, I think there is, in terms of like spoilers for the coming week, you know, of course we're gonna have whatever fallout happens with Carsona. Willow is going to also, you know, come back into play, interacting with Nina, et cetera, et cetera. And you know, there's gonna be a little bit of processing about the kiss, but between Chalin, the old pirate's booty kiss, as I'm calling it. Because you know, they were eating the pirate's booty and then they kissed. It's very romantic.
Why can't they just process this in somebody's bed?
Brooklyn's going away. She's going to be gone all next week. She's going to be in Bensonhurst. So it's like we're even getting like a delay on that. So that's not even, we're not even picking back up on that storyline, which, you know, is not my favorite, but I want it to move. But there's actually a lot more coming up around Elizabeth's storyline that I think will take up more of the bandwidth that Peter took up. So I think it starts to pick back up midweek. Oh no, actually on Tuesday, Elizabeth. No, wait. Sorry, I'm looking at the spoilers in real time. She's on all week. Damn. Okay. Elizabeth gets a surprise visitor.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, Elizabeth.
Yeah. Elizabeth gets a surprise visitor on Monday.
Is it her dad?
I don't know, but I think it might actually, I would think that it might be Betsy Frank.
Probably.
But maybe not.
Will she go see Drew?
Huh?
Will Betsy go see Drew? Didn't she adopt Drew too?
Yeah. Thank you for remembering that. I don't know the writer as well. And then Elizabeth is rocked by another strange incident on Tuesday. Jake comes home to a lot of questions. Dante and Sam talk through Elizabeth's situation. That's Wednesday. Thursday, Elizabeth and Finn receive an unexpected visitor. There's also a Cameron spoiler for him serving TJ and Stella at Kelly's and apologizing, although I think that has more to do with the paternity storyline. And then it's a somber anniversary for many in Port Charles, which I think is about Franco's death, anniversary of Franco's death, which it doesn't necessarily align with how the timeline, when it actually happened on the show, but it's close enough. And Elizabeth recently referenced that his death anniversary was coming up.
Damn, so Elizabeth's gonna be on all week, every day? I
think so. I think this is
okay, Becky. We see you
working. So it seems like they're gonna go on this. It was Elizabeth's kids angle as one of the red herrings. But then also she has discussed thinking that maybe it was Betsy.
Is Hudson coming back as Jake?
I have no idea.
Yeah,
I hope so because he's good.
Too. He's very good.
I actually don't care about aging the characters up in a way that makes sense, right? Because some people were saying we need to age up Jake because we just aged up Aiden. Cameron's actually much older than Joss and Spencer and all this shit. It doesn't matter, whatever. Aging up rules. We get to make them up as we go along. But yeah, I do hope it's Hudson. He's very good. But yeah, I like how they're kind of laying out these red herrings, because it to me, bringing these things up means that that's not what's happening, and it makes the case for the DID stuff, which I believe in it. I believe it's gonna happen. I
demand it.
I believe that we will win.
You're manifesting.
You want to have me chance it. Yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm excited to have Liz on a bunch. I'm excited. I was hoping that the Sam line to her was some foreshadowing. Because I would love for Sam to be involved in her story that way. I just think that when we see them team up, it's always good. There's always a little bit of the reminder of their history, so it's a little shady, but it's also a overcoming story. And because Becky and Kelly are actually friends, it also makes it even better. I mean, you just when you can tell actresses are friends behind the scenes, the Maura stuff is funnier better and richer for Carly and Ava, and I think the Liz and Sam stuff is richer for it too.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there is something, dare I say, healing about it, because not only because of the dick wars and all the trauma that all of us endured along the way,
and I have inflicted,
even those of us who were just casualties. I was I wasn't honest sorry, but I got brought into it.
I inflicted it. I inflicted harm. I will say.
I'm glad that you're taking responsibility for that. I appreciate that. I think it's also about like the fact that these two characters have been really backburnered the last, couple of years. And to see them, I would love to see them like rise from the ashes together. And also I like it being kind of like a mystery for Sante to work on together too. And so it brings Dante in, because Dante also told Elizabeth, he promised her when he told her that Franco's studio burned down, that he would get to the bottom of it. So we get to see a little Sante team up, and we get to see Finn being really wrong about Elizabeth's kids.
But will he be wearing a vest?
Only time will tell.
That's the true mystery.
Is the Finn vest now the equivalent of the Brooklyn blazer, or?
I think there's some correlation between when he's wearing a vest and when he's not, but we're gonna have to ask Tara about that. I think she has the analysis on that. I can't even pretend.
Yeah.
So
what do you guys think about the whole Willow's mom making up the bullshit story about the birth certificate? I think she lied to Alexis and Willow, and I think she stole Willow.
Damn. You know what? That shock was really shocked. I was like, why would she lie to her boo Alexis? But then I forgot. I was talking about Harmony.
She's a lying liar who lies. She's a lying liar who lies, and I still love her anyway. But no, I definitely think she was not. I think she was being partially truthful to Alexis, but I think there's something that she was left out. Obviously, because obviously Willow is Nina's daughter, so like that's the thing, is like it wasn't some random pregnant woman unless she was carrying one of Nina's embryos, which is a thing they love to do. They love to.
That's what I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
I think Nina's mother sold her eggs.
Oh.
So she might not even be Silas's, but usually, no, I'm getting way into the science. I'm like, well, it's they keep better when they're inseminated already, but never mind. We're getting too deep into reproductive health, and that doesn't matter on the show. Yeah, I don't know what they're doing with this storyline. I kind of just wish they would get to the reveal, and I have a feeling it's not going to be for a while. Like, I really just like, that's all I care about. I don't really care for them to make it make sense, right? Like, I just want Nina to have to reckon with the fact that Willow is her daughter and vice versa. So like the build up to me doesn't matter as much, and I'm annoyed that it's going to take a long time, I feel like. But
do you think when Willow finds out that it will be like a happy thing, like, oh my god, we're like mother and daughter, I love you, or okay, all right, I think that, because I also wonder if this is going to be another part of like the Carly Nina beef, which would be that Willow has taken Carly's side, and they have to reckon with like whatever fallout from that is.
I think it might be a similar storyline for when Sam found out that Alexis was her mom, because they used to fight all the time, and now she's like, now you're my mom. That kind of thing. So
with the way that they're kind of building up for Harmony and Willow to be making up, and then the Tuesday spoiler for Nina and Willow is that Nina sets Willow off, so they're gonna be at odds again after that brief moment of connection around dysfunctional families. So the final one that we'll talk about, Cameron and Jocelyn awkwardly cross with Trina. This is the Friday spoiler, and the context I'll give is that then we're going to go into like the rest of next week is going to be heavy on the teens. So it would seem as if the sex tape is going to drop next week. And having that fall out plus some Cassadine stuff related to Spencer. So this is going to be, it seems like it's going to be the Friday cliffhanger for the kids leading into picking their arc back up next week. So we've already kind of talked about what we don't want to see and what we want to see from that story. Yeah. Is there anything else that y'all want to throw out there before we close out?
When I saw that spoiler, I initially thought, oh, I wonder if it's going to be like Trina walks in on Cam and Joss. And then like that leads into like her then like discovering, because I think that we're going to have to see, like there's another one that's like Trina makes a shocking discovery. And I think that must be that when Esme like switches out her phone. Or that's at least what I think it's going to be.
Yeah. I thought it was about them walking in or Trina walking in on them, but then I was like, on what set, to be honest? Like that was it for me. I was like, oh, there's not a private set for her to be walking in on them doing anything too intense. I mean, she could walk in on them like kissing at Kelly's. That's happened before. But I was wondering if the awkwardness was actually because Joss and Trina just still haven't they haven't processed what happened. Trina's still mad. But I also wonder about that's getting into next week. I'm just hoping for like a Sprina scene, unspoiled Sprina scene somewhere here, because it's rough out here, y'all. It's rough out here. We still haven't seen Trina visit him. I'm starting to wonder if that's gonna happen.
I was just thinking that. I was like, oh no, she still hasn't visited. He's gonna be out of jail, and then we don't get the jail scene.
I wanted her to give him the book of poetry, but it's okay. It happened in my head canon, so that's all I'm gonna get. But I do think there's something about the way that Trina's been having to reckon with her feelings with Spencer, even though they haven't been in scenes together. That's been what the majority of her interactions have been about, people bringing him up and her grappling mostly with negative stuff, but with Laura, there was that space for her to be vulnerable and also come to terms with her feelings. So that there's not too many people left for her to reckon with besides him. So it would be nice to step.
I want to at least get a scene where one of them are walking in on each other and then they get one of those looks.
The looks. I'll just take a look.
Just a look.
Because it's like, Nicholas does a little swaggy thing.
He does a swag walk in and then she's like,
why is there a relation? Nope, I'm not gonna throw shade at the end of the show. Nope.
I think Trina should do a swag walk, and then he's just like, oh my god, there's the love of my life right there.
I know. I love how she comes up short a little bit with him when she's like trying to be flirty, and then she's like, I'm gonna do this, and then he does something. She's like, he like takes her breath for a second. It's my favorite little thing that they do.
But yeah, having that be the switch would be so fire. I think Twitter would just go crazy. Sprina on Twitter would go crazy. Yeah, she just walks in hecka hot and sexy, and he's just like, his world is just lit up.
Me in the group chat would go crazy. Like, did y'all see this?
It's gonna be wild. I can't wait. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
That would be a cliffhanger for Friday. That would be the ultimate cliffhanger.
Well, it would be really great if like she ran into Cameron and Joss and actually wasn't with them when the sex tape drop happens, and that she's with Spencer. So then she like comes out of it and is like, what the fuck happened? And why do y'all think I would do this nasty thing?
Yeah. I want to end on I can't wait for a real, Ashley's Twitter is going to go crazy when they finally kiss. Like, and I'm going to be one of the people. So I'm ready for a real Sprina kiss. The near kiss was already hot, so like we already know they're gonna light it up with the real kiss. I continue to be proud of both of our children, both Sydney and Nicholas, for killing it every time we see them, both together and apart. The Kim is undeniable. Just what a ship to ship. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
Love it. What a great moment to end on.
what a great moment. All right, y'all. Well, we'll see you next week. As always. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.